Bill de Blasio. Gentlemen, I'd like to bring up Andrew Ling, who's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Andrew?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great job, Andrew. Thank you so much. I'd like to acknowledge our host for this evening, Russell Sage, Junior High School 190, and Principal John Grego. And our co-sponsors, Community Board 6. Community Board 6. Community Board 9. The Forest Hills Asian Association. Queens Community House. And the 112th Precinct Community Council. All right. So now I'd like to invite up some of our special guests this evening to bring some brief greetings, starting with your DA, Melinda Katz.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Kozlowitz, thank you for coming out here to Forest Hills at Russell Sage Junior High School. Just so everybody knows, I think the only reason I'm here tonight is because it's my alma mater. I went to Russell Sage. And where'd my son go? My son hid somewhere. So I'm here with Hunter Katz to welcome the mayor and to thank the councilwoman for the amazing job that she does bringing money home to this district, representing us in the New York City Council. It is an amazing job that she has done through the years, decades in service. And to the mayor of the city of New York, he's in Queens so much, I think he's running for the empty borough president's seats. Speaking of, I would like to acknowledge and thank for allowing me to be here, Sharon Lee, our acting borough president, who is keeping the helm. And of course, we have Senator Stavisky and Assemblyman Hevesy. So everyone, I am in a new role, as many of you know, and I want to thank so many of you for the support and the friendship through the years. We are facing difficult times in criminal justice. There just is no doubt about it. Whichever side of the issues that you are on, these are very serious issues that need to be dealt with every single day. Whether it's bail reform, discovery reform, whether it's making sure we keep our communities safe, which I believe the way to do it is keeping people out of the criminal justice system when they are young kids and make sure we get them on the right paths and on the right track. And so it is an amazing time in history, and I do think that we will be remembered for how we deal with these times in history. For now, though, I just wanted to welcome the mayor of the city of New York, wanted to welcome Karen Kozlowitz. I do want to thank our commissioners that are behind us, but in respect to my new job, I'd like to especially thank Chief Beltran and Chief Frierson for the work that they do and all the commands that are here today. I did take John Mazur away from the 112 precinct, just so you know. He's now on my squad. Chief Pichardo is here. Where is Chief? Oh, Chief Pichardo, I apologize. You moving to Queens? No, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great night tonight. And remember one thing. This is a mayor who has done town halls in every single community in the city of New York. Whether you like what he does or don't like what he does, we are a community that respects each other, and he will stand here and listen to almost every person in the room. I know this because of what we've done in the past. So thank you for coming out and being part of this great discussion tonight. Congratulations.
Thank you, DA Katz. Now I'd like to invite up your acting Queens Borough President, Sharon Lee.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Council Member. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Welcome back to Queens. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Hi. As Commissioner Carrion mentioned, my name is Sharon Lee. For those of you who don't know, I have the honor and the privilege of serving as your acting Queensborough president. And on that note, I have a few notes of reminder to folks of Queens. We've got an election coming up on March 24, where we in the Borough of Queens will get to vote and elect our incoming borough president. And so I urge you to vote wherever you stand or sit on the spectrum of political ideology or any of the issues that we talk about tonight. It is a nonpartisan election. Everybody who is registered to vote is strongly encouraged to vote because, as we know, if we don't vote, we just don't matter. Along those, pardon? There is early voting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is early voting, and early voting begins on March 12, I believe. Don't check me on that, but there is early voting. We encourage everyone to vote. A couple other notes. My term is very limited, a little under 100 days. And a lot of that is because we made some history a few months ago here in Queens. We elected our very first female district attorney and chief law enforcement officer in the Borough of Queens. And that was, of course, none other than the Honorable Melinda Katz, who is no stranger to Forest Hills, for better or for worse. But that being said, she made some history, and so on her way out, she asked that I serve in an acting capacity as we wait for our incoming borough president to be elected. And so I focused the first few weeks on making sure that Queensborough Hall continues to run, mostly on time with the help of our community boards. And I'd like to encourage everyone and make sure you know that I've extended the deadline for community board applications, in case you don't know. The deadline is now March 13, so if you haven't gotten your applications in and if you're interested, please do so. And another priority in Q1 of 2020 is the census, as we know, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that soon. But in case you haven't heard, this year is a census. And the last time we had a census was 10 years ago, when Queens was undercounted. We were undercounted. And an undercount, as the commissioner knows, is something we just simply cannot afford. We simply cannot afford. Some approximates show that for every person who is not counted, costs us anywhere between $2,600 to $3,000 a person in federal funding per year. And so it really costs us, because if you think about the Borough of Queens, we're 2.4 million people. If we are undercounted by even 1% of that, check me on my math. My math is not so great. 1% of 2.4 million is 24,000 people times $3,000. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money per year. And so it's something we cannot afford. And so I urge you, March 12, coincidentally, is when the questionnaires will go online. Please remember to be counted. Please make sure that everyone in your family, all of your neighbors are counted. The citizenship question is not on the census. And so whatever the climate is, it should not deter anyone from filling out that census. Actually, whether you fill it out or not, there is no scarlet letter. So I encourage you to fill that out, because just as if we don't vote, we're not counted. It can also cost us a house seat. Thank you, or two. So there are real costs to not being counted. Anyways, you didn't come here to hear me lecture, but I wanted to put those important priorities of our borough on your radar, or back on your radar. But thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you very much for this honor to serve in this very limited time.
Thank you, Acting VP Lee. And just a point of information, early voting starts Saturday, March 14th and ends Saturday, March 22nd. So please, everyone, go vote. And now I'd like to bring up your State Senator, Toby Ann Stavisky.
Thank you. Commissioner, I love saying commissioner. I knew him long before he was a commissioner. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for coming back to Queens. I know you had lunch last week in Flushing, that part of my district, to show that Flushing is open for business. It's safe. I was there Sunday, and Queens is safe, and we thank you for coming. We thank you for bringing the commissioners and the NYPD, and to our council member, Karen Koslowitz, thank you for everything that you do. Few people understand this, but I know how hard you work.
Do it together.
Karen said, because we do it together. Mr. Mayor, there are so many people here because of the issues that are important to the people here, whether it be the bus redesign issue, a very significant issue here, or education, the diversity plan for School District 28, the issue of the gifted and talented programs. All of these are important issues that I'm sure you'll hear about tonight. But we thank you for coming and listening and perhaps acting on some of the issues that are important to everybody. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Stavitsky. And now I'd like to bring up your Assembly Member, Andrew Hevesy.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Now, one more time, like Sharon did it. Good evening, everybody. Good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for coming here. Thank you, Karen, to the best city council person a guy could have. Honestly, there's nobody better. The only person who's going to be offended by that is Melinda Katz, who was also the council person before Karen. But Melinda, you're going to be the best district attorney that Queens has ever had. So thank you, everybody, to all my colleagues. I'm going to be very brief. I do want to touch on 4 topics. The first one is a compliment to the mayor, and he hasn't gotten enough play on this one, and I want everybody to pay attention. The Administration for Children's Services. This is the agency that deals with the most vulnerable kids in New York City. You raising your hand, young man? Okay. The ACS, you only hear about them when something goes wrong, when you have a child fatality or something bad. There was a monumental achievement by David Hansel and ACS this last week. The number of kids in foster care dropped to a historic low, below 8,000 kids. They deserve credit for that and a round of applause for this administration for doing that. And if you're saying to yourself, why is that important? Number one, we're in the business of helping kids when we can. But number two, that saves you taxpayer money, because the kids who don't wind up in the foster care system, which is a way more expensive way of caring for kids, are much less likely to wind up on public assistance, wind up having trouble in schools, or wind up incarcerated. So that's number one. Congratulations, Mr. Mayor. A couple of issues that I want to touch on. Bail reform. You could talk to the mayor about bail reform. I voted for it. And I'm happy about that vote. I'm proud about that vote. And I will get into... Thank you. For those of you who booed, please raise your hand for a second. That means you don't believe in the presumption of innocence. That means that you want people to be locked up. Now listen. I will have a reasonable conversation with everybody in this... Listen. I will have a reasonable conversation with everybody in this community. Not only I'll stay tonight, but we're going to do a forum on this locally where we can have this conversation. But the fear-mongering and the yelling about how dangerous it is outrageous. It's outrageous, sir. So I just wanted to direct everybody's attention. If you're mad about bail reform, you're mad at me. I voted for it, not the mayor. Two more issues. The homeless shelter we'll talk about. That's number one, the homeless shelter the mayor will talk about. But the other two, I want to make sure that everybody's clear. The bus redesign that's coming that's scaring everybody in this neighborhood, that's not the mayor. That's the MTA, which is controlled by the governor. The same group, the same elected officials in the Bronx who experienced the bus redesign, 85 to 90% of their concerns were addressed. So I know people are scared about the bus redesign. We will work with you and make sure that they're not stripping out buses from in front of our senior centers and other things. And then the last issue, Mr. Mayor, you and I had just had a good conversation about this, and I'd like to tee you up at this point. The school diversity plan, which is very frightening to parents. We just had a reassuring conversation about this, and when you get a chance, I'd like you to address people about it. But thank you, everybody, for having me here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Assemblymember Hevesy. I also like to acknowledge the new Executive of Community Partnerships in the DA's office, Colleen Babb.
Good evening, everyone.
This is bad.
And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Councilmember Koslowitz.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here tonight. You know, last week I was walking into City Hall, and I was stopped, and they said the mayor would like to come into your community next week. Now, I've been in the city council a long time, and I have to tell you, I have served under 4 mayors. 4 mayors. This is the only mayor that has come without campaigning, no campaigning, to Forest Hills to hear about our issues. And we have issues. And I just want to say thank you, Mr. Mayor, for doing that. Forest Hills, I live here 58 years. I wasn't born here either. And I have to say that, yes, the neighborhood has changed in a very good way, in many instances. In a very, very good way. It has become much more diversified. It has become a neighborhood that people come here. If you go down Queens Boulevard, you'll see all the development that is going on throughout the district, sometimes too much. We're worried about the infrastructure, but at the same time, people want to come to Forest Hills and live because it's a great place to be. So with that, I just want to say to you, thank you. Thank you for caring about Forest Hills, for caring about coming to our community to talk about the issues as our elected officials have mentioned, the diversity and many other issues that confront us at this time. And I want to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and I'm gonna say something about the council member in a moment, but I want to start by talking about all of you. I'm only going to talk for a couple minutes, and then we're going to open it up. But I want to thank everyone here. We're all New Yorkers. We expect to have a passionate conversation about pretty much everything. We all have strong views. That's who we are. But what I love about New Yorkers is people care. People show up. It is a weeknight. There's lots of other things you could be doing with your time. Look at this room full of people who care about the community, who are putting their own heart and soul into what they believe will help their community. This is actually what democracy is supposed to be. So I want to say, it's cool if we have agreements, disagreements. That's not the point. What really matters is everyone's here and cares. So look around the room, please, at all these good, committed residents of this community. Please give each other a round of applause. I want to thank your elected officials who you heard from. I have a wonderful working relationship with all of them, respect them all. The district attorney and I were in the city council together. I think she's going to do amazing things. I thank our acting borough president. I thank our representatives in Albany. Senator Stavisky and Assemblymember Hevesi work extraordinarily hard to protect this community and this city in Albany, and that is a full-time job. So I want to say to both of you, because I've seen the impact and the influence you have up there, thank you for always protecting us, and thank you for bringing home so much to the city of New York. I appreciate you both very much. I also want to note that we have here the leadership of a number of city agencies. We also have some of the most important leaders of the NYPD here. And I want you to thank all of them for the work that they do. And a special congratulations, it's still pretty new, to our Chief of Patrol, just got the job a few months ago, Chief Fausto Pichardo. Congratulations again. So I want to remind you, we're going to have a town hall meeting for the next couple of hours, but after that, there's really a second opportunity if you want to take it, because all these folks are sitting right here. You do not need to make an appointment. You do not need to go to Manhattan. They're right here. They will hang around. If you want to talk to them, they're here to hear your concerns or to follow up the things that happened in this meeting. Now, they've all worked a long day already. So you may have some sympathy and say, you know, wait, we shouldn't hold them up. Let's let them get home. I say no. These are committed public servants. They will stay here all night if you want them to. They like when I say that. There's a big smile. And one more thing, I've got to talk about your council members. So Karen Koslowitz, I'm not here to flatter you falsely. I'm here to tell you the truth, and it is the truth. In City Hall, both sides of City Hall, you are one of the most respected members of the City Council. People listen to you. They know how committed you are. They know how serious you are. They know how hardworking you are. And they know you have devoted your life to public service. And it's a beautiful thing. I want to thank you for all you have achieved. And I want you to know, when you remember the old E.F. Hutton ad, when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen. Well, when you talk, I listen. And I appreciate you. Let's thank her for all she has done. Okay, 3 very quick things. The first, on the approach to town hall meetings. I've done about 70 town hall meetings all over the 5 boroughs. I ask of you this: whatever your issue, whatever your concern, please stick to one thing, because we got a lot of people all want to offer their issue or concern. Everyone, one thing each, one issue each, one question each, whatever it is, one, to give the most people a chance. State whatever it is you feel. I'm here to listen. I'll respond. I'll try and respond briefly. But the point is, when you have the floor is yours. Please keep it tight, keep it brief, make your point so as many people as possible can participate. Second, oh, and by the way, the council member will call on people, and we're going to make it a point to constantly go around the room. So just everyone knows, every section will be called on regularly. We'll just rotate around. Second point, just a couple of updates on issues that I think people might be bringing up, and I'd be happy to just give you the update in advance. So first is just a piece of news that is something people should appreciate because it's good news. This community, this council district, of literally the 51 council districts of New York City, when we started 6 years ago, had the lowest number of pre-K seats of any council district, only 100 full-day pre-K seats in this district. Today, there are 1,630 pre-K seats in this district. And we know a lot of people care about the public schools. I'm a public school parent myself. We're going to talk about the issues. We're going to talk about diversity. I'll give you an update. I'm going to listen to you. We're going to work together. But there's a couple other issues that have come up. A lot about space and overcrowding and the need for more space in our schools, the need for more school facilities. So 2 new facilities were announced and are now in construction. There'll be 250 more seats at PS 196 and 392 more seats at PS 206. So those are under construction now. I'm announcing something new tonight. We will be adding 432 new seats at PS 174. So that is an announcement tonight. Combined, that will mean over 1,000 new school seats for this district on the way. And we'll keep going after that if we need to. The second point, here, right here at this school, there's been a lot of concern about the summer because there's going to be programs this summer and the need for air conditioning. I am here to announce the air conditioning will be in place by this summer. And then one more point. At our last town hall meeting, council member, we talked about the need for the new Rego Park Library. That's moving forward. But people have said in the meantime, and I appreciate it, because it's going to be a while, because the community has such a need, people didn't want one of those mobile vans. They wanted an actual storefront. And you are right. So you will get an actual storefront. We will have a storefront replacement library. Until the new one is built, we'll have a storefront where you can go and use the library in the meantime, thanks to your council member and her advocacy. Let's thank Karen. Last point is a bigger point just about the conversation we're going to have. And it starts on a sober note. We had a very tough situation this week. And it's something that we didn't see for a few months, thank God, but it now has happened again right nearby in Middle Village. An NYPD officer took his life. And this is something, I know all the men and women of the NYPD here feel this very personally, very deeply. This is something we've been dealing with the stresses on our officers, the challenges, and trying to make sure they have the support they need. The NYPD and our entire city is going to do everything, anytime, anywhere, to help an officer. And please, one of the things you can do to help an officer, whenever you see any officer, is just express your gratitude and appreciation for the work they do. That helps. Let them know how much you care about them. And I conclude by saying everything we're going to talk about, if you feel, again, passionately, strongly, that means you care. I'm listening. I am not someone who fails to note when I think there's a problem, that people raise a problem, I listen to the problem. If you offer me a solution I hadn't heard before, I'm listening. If there's something I have not explained to you or my team has not explained to you, it's our obligation to do that. We don't set a plan out there and then just blindly follow. We try to make sure that we're doing something that's working, or if there's some unintended consequence, we address it, or if there's something we didn't know, we take that into account. So I will talk to you tonight as I listen to your questions. I'll tell you why we are doing some of the things we're doing, what is motivating us in terms of what we're trying to do to help the people of the city. But I'm also listening when you tell me something that I need to understand better. I'm going to try and answer that tonight, or if it's something that we have to come back to people on, I'll tell you that as well. The important thing is I am here to listen to you and to make sure we have a real dialogue. And I thank you all for being here.
And with that, we are going to start questions. And I'm going to call on, we'll start with this section over here. Anybody have anything that they want to talk about?
You get a microphone coming to you. Yeah, and everyone, when you get rep to speak, just a microphone will be handed to you.
Thank you for coming. We disagree on quite a lot of things, but I want to thank you for being here to hear the concerns of the community. My question is regarding the borough-based jail facility that is planned to be open in Queens. This plan was voted down by Community Board 8, by Community Board 9, in an almost unanimous matter voted down by the outgoing borough president, and everyone that I have spoken with is quite against this endeavor. Yet I continue to hear that this was done with the community in mind and with the input of the community. So my question to you is, what actual community input has gone into this plan? And
Yep, thank you. So I think that we would all benefit from a very honest conversation. The community boards, when they speak, their voices matter. I can give you endless examples of where community boards raised concerns and it led to changes in all sorts of things that have happened over the years. But community boards are not the final word. That is the way our government is structured. On something like this, the ultimate decisions are made by the city council and the mayor, who are elected by all the people. And this one comes from a very simple beginning. We had a correction system that was actually making things worse for our city. It was, unfortunately, if you spend any time on Rikers Island, which was built 85 years ago, it was not built to turn people around, redeem people, help get them back into normal society. It created something that was actually making things worse. We decided, and it was a strong feeling in both the city council and in my administration, that we had to choose something different. Obviously, this was a site where there had been a jail previously. I want to say to everyone who has concerns that in my community in Brooklyn, I can literally walk to the Brooklyn jail in downtown Brooklyn, and I have represented that community for now 20 years in one form or another. There have not been safety issues. That's just a fact. In fact, it is a very prosperous, affluent neighborhood with a strong commercial presence. But the issues that have come from the community board were acted on. People said they wanted lower height. It ended up being a smaller facility. People said they wanted not only parking for the community to be protected and added to, but separate parking for the folks who would work in the jail. Those things are happening. So the community board, I'm not surprised any community board would say we don't want to take additional facilities. I understand that. But what mattered and was listened to was the community board said, here are things that need to change in this project, and they have. And that will be a continuing process, meaning as it is implemented, if other things come up that we have to make adjustments for, and we can, we will. but there was a thorough democratic process that ended with the city council and me.
I would like to really stick to the area. You have a question, fine, but I want to stick to, we have a lot of issues here in this community, and well, there are other people that want to talk about other things, and I want to give them a chance to talk about other things. In this group,
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I do not live in the Forest Hills area. However, I came here because I'm here basically for the Queens redesign program. So I want to bring that to your attention, okay? I live in Easton, Queens, which is the Flushing Fresh Meadows area. And that area is a transportation desert, pretty much. And now the MTA wants to limit the one lifeline, excuse me, that we have, the bus that I take to work, the QM44, that runs through here. I take that, and hundreds of my neighbors to use that bus to go to work every day. It also takes my elderly neighbors to their critical doctor's appointments. And now this bus line is planning to be eliminated. So I can't understand that at all. Nobody from your office or anybody else's office has ridden the bus to know how many people use that bus line. So I did a little research, Mr. Mayor, and I realized that a while ago you had quoted something, and I want to re-quote it. You said that areas like the South Bronx should matter just as much as areas like the Upper East Side. So on behalf of myself and all of my neighbors who defend the QM44, I'm imploring you, please remember us too.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. So I want to see how we can be helpful here. Now, the assembly member made the point, and I want to do a poll of the room just to test to see. How many people in this room think that the city of New York runs the MTA? Who thinks the city of New York runs the MTA? Okay, how many people think the state of New York runs the MTA? The ayes have it. That is the truth. And it's actually very important that that truth has come out, because now there's, for the first time bluntly in decades, there's a clear sense of who's responsible. And that means there can be accountability. But I have appointees to the MTA board, and I want to use my appointees on the MTA board to try and help address this issue. It scares me that there are places that have so little mass transit still in our city, which is why we have been trying to expand everything we get our hands on, the ferry service in some parts of the city, all sorts of things we can do. But if the MTA is making decisions, then they have to make sure they're not taking a transit desert and making it worse. So I don't have a majority on the board, but I do have a voice on the board. What I'd like to do, our transportation commissioner is here, Polly Trottenberg. She will follow up with you and your colleagues, and let's make sure that our appointees are raising these concerns. And the MTA should be required to create a plan that actually serves people who currently need the service. Either keep it where it is or give you an alternative you can have faith in, right? I'm not against change, but I want change that you actually can believe will serve you. So we will use our voice on the MTA to try and support that and get you what you need. Thank you.
All right. Ask your question, please.
Okay. Could you, Mayor de Blasio, Karen Koslowitz, thank you for coming here. Could you please get rid of the bail reform? Many people are being beaten, slashed, and hurt by criminals being released. They said they'd only release people that are nonviolent, but they're releasing people who are very, very violent. The other day, a Japanese tourist was slashed, and the man who slashed him had slashed someone, a deli worker, and he had pummeled a woman in his apartment building. and people are being slashed and hurt by criminals. Many violent criminals are being released, and New York City is becoming crime city. Could you please get rid of bail reform to make our city safer, please?
Thank you. Chief, come on up and let's get you a microphone. Look, you said several things. I respect your question. I'm going to answer it in a very honest fashion. But the last thing you said, I'm going to let someone who knows more than me about the topic come up here, because I want to be very honest with everyone. There are people in this city, not you. There are people and organizations in this city that are trying to tell you New York City is not safe, that are trying to tell you we are declining and we're going back to the 70s. Listen. If you believe that, God bless you. Then that means you're not interested in the facts. Here is the chief of patrol for the finest police force on earth, okay? So you can believe certain voices if you want to. You can believe that propaganda if you want to. Or, I'm going to let Chief Pichardo, before I answer the bail reform question, I want Chief Pichardo to tell you the status of safety in New York City.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you. This police department, as many of you know in this room and across the 5 boroughs, we are a resilient police department. We see change, we deal with change, we've been planning for this. Trust me, the dedicated men and women of the New York City Police Department will not stop at fighting crime. So rest assured, and the Commissioner has spoken this on numerous occasions, we're grateful that our folks up in Albany have come to the table and we voiced our concerns and we're working together. And together, I'm sure that the work that the men and women of the NYPD that have done for 25 years, the last decade, the last few years, will continue to prove worthy and crime will continue to go down. So the NYPD is here for you. Make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it. We have adapted to change for the past 20 years. This will be no different. And we'll continue to work vigorously to address any and all concerns so that you continue to feel safe in this city.
And the other way of saying that, I'm going to answer your question. Don't worry, I heard everything you said. The other way of saying it, which is to say, and anytime anyone is a victim of crime, that matters. Every single crime matters, and we have to deal with every single crime. But we still have to remember this is the safest big city in America because of what these guys do.
If a judge feels that someone is a danger to society, regardless of the new bail reform, if a judge feels that that person is a danger to society, I don't think that person should be released. I think a bank robber shouldn't have to rob 5 banks before they decide, I don't agree with felony, I don't agree with misdemeanor. I believe if you knock a woman's 2 teeth out, if you slash someone, you throw a kid to the floor, that person should go to jail. Forget bail reform. Bail reform is not working.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Listen, I'm going to speak to you. Of course I understand. You and I agree on some of this, and we disagree on some of this. I'm going to talk about it. But I need to start with the beginning and say, a lot of people are whipping up fear. Now, I'm not saying your question is not valid. I'm saying honestly. Guys, how many people lived here 25 years ago? Okay. If anyone wants to tell me that what we're living today has the slightest resemblance to then, I will have that debate with you all day long, okay? So we are not going back. It is not all coming back. And again, I'll come to you, but listen, anyone who believes it's all coming back, I'm going to say this really plainly. If you believe it's all coming back, then you do not understand the NYPD. You do not understand the NYPD. It's as simple as that. So, to your question, I think the Chief of Patrol just said in front of all of you the work that is being done to ensure the safety of the city. So I would ask for some respect for what they have achieved and the fact they continue to achieve it. To your question, there is a good part of bail reform, unquestionably, and there's a part that I think needs to be addressed. The good part is we did have lots of people going to jail for minor offenses who were kept behind bars because they could not afford a modest amount of bail. that was inhumane, that was not helping them become better people, that was costing you and me a lot of money. It was wrong. The bail reform as an idea was the right thing to do. What I've said very, very publicly, and Commissioner Shea has said the same thing, is we think some revisions are needed. And those are the conversations we're having right now with the leadership in Albany. We've had a series of very productive conversations. There's different ideas on how to do it, but a recognition that we don't want unintended consequences. Something good happened. I believe that, and Commissioner Shea believes that. The legislature, to their credit, addressed a longstanding mistake. We think there's some other issues that need to be addressed to try and get it to work for the long term. And I am hopeful that we're going to get that done in just the next few months. I also have to tell you, and again, the chief and everyone else can tell you this history, do not for a moment think that the only time people were arrested for something and then ended up in the street was since the bail reform. Something like 85% of people who have been arrested for crimes historically have gotten out by paying their bail. So I don't want it to be painted in this kind of caricature. There is a real issue that needs to be addressed. I've said it very publicly, and we will. But this is not like someone flicked a switch and everything changed in New York City overnight. This is something we have to address, and we have between now and June in this legislative session. Again, I believe it will be addressed. Thank you.
We're going around. We're going to come around, everybody. No.
Thank you for coming. I've been a New Yorker for about 35 years and a resident of this area for most of that time. And I've never doubted that I would remain so until the last couple of years. And I feel that my tenure as a New Yorker and the city as well is in financial jeopardy. And I felt the circumstances started a couple years ago when you announced what I saw as a regressive tax, but you call congestion pricing on the East River bridges. And then you proposed these jails in the city, one of which I will see from my home lighting up the night sky almost like a beacon of incarceration, that are not only unnecessary for numerous reasons, but particularly for fiscal ones. And also, I feel troubled that they're adding to the
I'm sorry, I asked everyone to stay on one thing, so give me your one thing.
This is all financial.
What's your one thing, though?
Financial. That one, and then added to that, the fact that the property taxes are still unfairly distributed.
You got to tell me your one thing. I'm going to respond to everyone on one issue. So what's your one issue?
Well, they're all related to
You got to just tell me what you want a response on.
Financing issues.
If you want property tax, I'll talk about property tax. Is that what you'd like me to talk about?
Well, finance, okay?
Our budget? I'll talk to you about our budget.
Dealing with all of these things, the jail, the bridges, and the property taxes are all
Okay, I'm going to talk to you about our fiscal situation. Look, I understand the concern, and anyone who raises it's a valid concern. Where are we going in the future? So right now, thank God, and a lot of people in this room have been a part of it, the city is in the strongest shape it has been in terms of our economy, pretty much in our lifetimes. We've added 500,000 new jobs in the last 6 years. The city's fiscal condition, our bonds have been upgraded. That's something that would have been unimaginable in the past. We have the highest reserves we have had in our history. So each of the issues you raise is different, but I'm going to pull out the common thread. Are we going to be fiscally safe? Are we going to be a fiscally strong city going forward? I'm absolutely convinced we are. We are going to have, I believe, the property tax reform proposal that our commission has put out is going to lead to action in the next 18 months that really will improve the system, but it will not reduce the city's revenue. And I believe the other pieces that you're talking about are going to be accounted for in our budget. And most importantly, look, I'm someone who didn't agree with congestion pricing for years. I'm from Brooklyn. I had a lot of problems with it. It constantly was improved upon as a plan. Governor Cuomo and I actually got to a point of agreeing, which is not every day, but we got to a point of agreeing on a plan because the most crucial thing to the future of the city was a long-term funding source for the MTA, and we have it, and it's much improved compared to the plans from the past. But it also means the MTA will be more fiscally stable than it would have been. So I want to affirm, and the bond rating agencies that are, they don't report to me, the bond rating agencies are saying the same thing. We're in the strongest fiscal shape we have been in decades. No, one per person.
Thank you for coming. My question will be about the diversity plan for District 28. I'm a granddaughter of Holocaust survivors from one side and of Jews that were expelled from Northern African countries from another side. And I'm an immigrant. Live here, love it here, moved here to be part of a Jewish community, which I am. The names of the working groups for the diversity plan have been released, and there is still no Jewish representation in the working groups in this community, which is largely Jewish. And I have to wonder why. I need your help in having this solved, because there are 3 Department of Education employees on the list, 3 out of 20 people, but not one Jewish representation.
Yes.
I feel like I'm living 40 years ago,
No,
50 years ago.
We will fix it. I'm glad you raised it. Thank you. Thank you. And first of all, your family has been through a lot, and I appreciate that you are part of what is now a thriving Jewish community here, which I think is the ultimate answer to all the oppression and all the subjugation that the community was put through other places, that today in New York City, the city on earth with the largest Jewish community of any city, this is a true statement, within the city limits of New York City is the largest Jewish community of any city on earth. And it is a thriving community, and it's one that I respect and we're going to protect. So of course there needs to be representation, and that is something that will be changed, I guarantee it. In fact, when that list was put out today, it was with a message to the community and to elected officials that additional members will be added. So please, I'll have our folks from Department of Education follow up with you tonight. We'd love your ideas on who should be added, but we've also asked each of the elected officials who should be added. That process will go on throughout this calendar year. So it'll go all the way to the end of the year, thinking about the different options. What does the community want? What do people think would work? We want an open discussion. For anything like this to be meaningful and be effective, it has to be done with the community and with the Community Education Council. This is not something you force on people. It has to be something that comes out of an organic process. That happened in a number of other districts. People got there through a careful process. That's what we need to have here, and everyone must be represented. Go ahead. Good. Point again. Point again. Who are you pointing at? There?
Thank you for accepting me. My name is Harry Mitzmark. I'm from Woodside. And addressing the fact is, why is New York City losing landmarks? Because where you come off Koch Bridge, Hugh Carey Tunnel, RFK Bridge, the politicians are elected to do a good job. They did a fine job. You want to honor them? Fine. Put a plaque by their desk, the political desk, and honor them there. You go see them. But New York City should not lose landmarks. That's what I say. I don't like the idea of saying RFK Bridge. No, and I remember when it was dedicated by President Roosevelt. 3 communities coming together, and now handed over to a politician who couldn't even vote, sneaked his way in, and honor him. We got to restore those original names which belong to the city, to the people, not to a politician.
All right. Well, I'm just going to say I personally cannot bring myself to refer to any of those bridges except by their earlier name. So I don't know many people who do refer to them by the politician name. We have no plans to name any others, I assure you. I know, but we still call the Triborough, and the inner borough, and everything else. So go ahead.
Okay. Nobody here, right? No. Okay. I can't see. Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for being here. I have lived in Queens my whole life. I have been in this area about 14 years. Mr. Mayor, I do not feel safe. I feel I'm telling you as a member who lives here. I don't have a security detail. I don't carry a gun. I don't do anything. I wake up at 5 a.m. I go to work 6 days a week to pay the taxes for this city. The fact is, Mr. Mayor, people are leaving New York. They're not coming in. They're leaving New York. And I'll tell you why I think for the first time I went on the internet and I'm looking for other alternative residents because of this borough-based jail. I don't want this borough-based jail. Again, I know that you and the councilwoman voted for it. I think both of you have no clue what goes on in regular people's lives. The borough-based, if Rikers is broken, you guys get paid big money, fix Rikers. But to have a borough-based jail in Forest Hills, to me, is not the solution. Why don't I feel safe, Mr. Mayor? I see police officers getting dumped with water, and unfortunately, they have to walk away. They don't do anything about it. They walk away. I see police officers get shot.
Okay. Come on.
I see all of it.
Raise your concern.
And that is my point, Mr. Mayor. My point is that we don't feel safe. I respect the chief here. Thank you so much for coming, taking time out of your family to be here with us. Thank you very much. But the fact of the matter is the borough-based jails are not the answer. That's my statement, not a question.
I would urge you respectfully to not assume what the council member and I know about human beings' lives. Because before any of us holds these offices, we're human beings who live in communities. And we don't have security details. And we have children. I had children in our public schools. I cared about them and their safety. So I'm never going to insult you and how you interpret the world. I ask you to respect the people who serve you. I also ask you to respect the NYPD. They don't just walk away when someone breaks a law. This is a right-wing propaganda that you're listening to. They do not walk away. I'm sorry, they don't. If someone violates a law, they effectuate an arrest. Chief, would you like to explain to people what happens when someone violates the law?
The NYPD is remarkable in so many ways. And we're fortunate in this city that we have tremendous support from the community. And what we do have, and we take great pride in, is that not only do we have the largest, most professional and dedicated police force in the country, if not the world, but the fact that we have the greatest detectives in the world, that not just when the NYPD and NYPD officer is a victim of a crime, when anyone in this great city is a victim of a crime, they are resilient. We are resilient. We will track those people down. We will arrest them and bring them to justice. So whether it's a bucket of water, as you alluded, it happened in the summer, but we found every single person responsible when we arrested them. And that doesn't stop with the NYPD. That stops with every single victim of any crime in the city of New York.
Mr. Mayor, the first thing I want to do is thank you for the pre-K services, which are amazing. I've myself benefited from it. And I do want to speak to you now as a mother, as someone who, I run a learning center for 15 years. I went to Russell Sage. My mom was a school aide at Russell Sage. My question to you is about the schools. Why are there not more specialized high schools? Why are they not blowing up in this neighborhood? I traveled over an hour to school back and forth for high school. Your own children attended specialized high school screens. You know firsthand what the benefit of these schools are. And respectfully, so many parents are so angry over the status of the schools right now. Please help me understand as I communicate with families now in my career navigating schools. Why York High School only has 100 kids per grade? Why not 1,000? Can you please help explain?
Great question. Thank you. So there's two answers. The first is there are a lot of very, very good schools. This is just a true statement. A lot of very good schools that in some ways didn't get the reputation they deserve because they weren't some of those particularly highly regarded elite schools. And yet they had tremendous ability and tremendous potential. So one of the things we're doing, trying to bring up those schools. For example, advanced placement courses in every single high school. This is something we instituted. There was a long time, and you obviously care a lot about education, where many schools had no advanced placement courses at all. We now have them in every single high school. So there are plenty of high schools that we think can be great and just as highly regarded if they get the support. But the second piece is a very fair point about the specialized schools. This is something we're going to be addressing in the coming months. There's a real desire out there for more specialized school seats. You could do that by adding to existing schools. You could do that by adding brand new specialized high schools. Both have merit. I'm very open to doing that. I do want to see a change in the admissions process to be fair. I think the current admissions process is imbalanced. I do not miss the fact that many people have said those schools matter so much to them. They don't want an admissions process that they feel will now cut their kids out. So many people work so hard to get their kids there. That's a really fair concern. And our original proposal obviously met with real concern in Albany and wasn't passed. We need to start over and have a conversation about what would be a fairer admission system than the one we have now. And then I think that is also the right time to talk about how to either expand existing specialized high schools or add some new ones. I'm going to see if we can wrap all that together. So that is a very live item on the agenda right now.
Sorry, excuse me.
Mr. Mayor, thanks for being here. Karen, you do a great job. I want to ask you, how does this city and how does this country allow Amazon and internet retailers to sell products all over the country and skirt the cost of the city they sell to? They don't pay for the lights, they don't pay for the police, they pay for nothing, but they lob their goods into this city by free will. And the retail businesses, the bookstores are not in Queens anymore. The stores are hurting. We are storefront builders. My heritage for 50 years, the biggest union shop in New York. We own a lot of retail. How can this city and this country allow a business to operate, an internet retail business, and completely skirt the costs of the cities, the counties that they sell to? How come this government, how come this city can't impart an infrastructure tax on internet retail so we have streets, we have communities, kids have a bookstore to go to? Why do we kowtow to Jeff Bezos and his new flame so he could go buy a $180 million house, and we let him skirt everything we believe in, i.e. Main Street, business, your neighbors, and your life?
What is your first name?
Barry Rothenberg.
Barry? Okay.
Okay.
Barry,
I
thank
own
you.
on Austin Street the properties with Sephora, Shake Shack. We were the biggest union storefront builder in the United States. I worked in a shop with Umberto, bending the metal when I was 15 years old.
Thank you, Barry.
All right?
Barry, listen.
That's an issue that the country has to grab hold of. It can't be politics. It can't be Democrat, Republican. It's got to be what's right and what's wrong.
Got it.
Destroy working people's businesses.
Thank you, Barry.
Yes, sir.
So, Barry, I have some very personal feelings about Amazon. No, but I'm going to talk about everything, but I want to use you raised Amazon. It's a good example. By the way, everyone, they paid nothing in federal taxes last year. Nothing. And so, no, there's something really wrong with Amazon. They made a deal with the people in New York City, they made a deal with Queens, and then they walked away in the dead of night. And I resent that, because everything that had been agreed to by the city and state was there, and they walked away. And they took away tens of thousands of jobs from people in these communities. But look, there's a much bigger problem. I think you're raising a really good point. You're the first person I've ever heard suggest an infrastructure for a company like Amazon, and I think you're making a really powerful point, because what they do is unlike anything we've ever seen before, and they are profiting off of a lot of public services and not paying for them. So you're making a very interesting point, and I'm going to pursue it, and I'd like to make sure we get your information. I got you. We got a lot of people. My friend. Come on, no, listen. Everyone's got to get in. But, so we are going to follow up on that idea very seriously. It's a good one. I want our colleagues from CAU to follow up and bury you guys' information so we can keep them posted. But I want to say one more thing, everybody. One of the things I talked about in my State of the City is how to protect small businesses. We're going to do a lot to try and protect our small businesses, including reducing fines and getting them loans, getting them legal help dealing with their leases, their landlords, a lot we're going to be doing. But one thing I'm going to ask everyone in this room to do, if you are worried about your neighborhood mom and pop stores, if you're worried about small business in New York City, please go shop in your neighborhood stores, okay? Take some of the money you would have used at Amazon. Like, go to that local bookstore Barry's talking about. If you can, do it. And if you don't have one, go to whatever is local, because I'm telling you, look, we have a lot we got to try and do to fix this. But I do ask everyone can be a part of protecting small business by spending as much of your money locally as you can. Go ahead, Karen.
Thank you. I do want to thank our policemen and policewomen. As I always do, you might remember me, Mr. Mayor, from a few years ago. I always start off by thanking the men and women who put their lives on, line for us every single day. So thank you so much for what you all do. And I believe you should be protected in every way. Something one of the other women said before resonated with me. I am a granddaughter of immigrants, and I am a daughter of immigrants who came here, and my grandfather bought one of the first houses by working very hard in like 1938, and it's still a family home to this point. It is just disgusting that you have shoved a homeless shelter for 200 men in the neighborhood that my grandparents developed and grew up, and where I've grown up. There are 200 men, not from our community, because we keep hearing, oh, they're from your community. They're not from our community. We know that there are a lot of underhanded deals that went into this, and now there are 200 men near schools, near churches. Another preschool pulled out because they did not want to even invest the money, and now it opened up. I am trying to speak to this. It is, but no, it's a done deal, and we know it because it was shoved down our throats, and it is disgusting because now I don't feel safe here anymore. Now I have to buy more locks for my doors and a security system because you're not trying to help these men. I'll do 1 second. Or 30 seconds. You're not trying to help these men. There's nothing about it that you're going to give them any kind of help. You're warehousing them, and we are very aware of the fact what they are getting per head. Someone is making the money on it, and we know all the names, we know everything. It's just disgusting that you have done this to our community.
I want to respond to your concern, but I also want to say when anyone says something I think is just not true, I'm going to say it's not true. So you don't want a homeless shelter in your neighborhood. I'm not shocked. Excuse me, I listened, and I'm responding. You don't want a homeless shelter in your neighborhood. But then you think oh, there's deals and there's fixes and all this. It's just false. Excuse me. I'm telling you an answer to your concern because you're wrong, and I respect that why you don't want it. That's fine. I get that people don't want a homeless shelter in the neighborhood. I could go all over New York City, hear the same thing. Why are we doing this? Because we think it's fun? No. Because we think it's easy? No. Because we have people who are working people. These are working people who... I'm going to keep trying to answer this question. These are working people who, because we have a city that's gotten more and more expensive, and because some people were not able to stay in the housing they had, they need housing. We don't do what the West Coast does. On the West Coast, you've got tens of thousands of people on the streets. That is not, listen, I'm answering you. It's not warehousing. It is just not warehousing. And I'm going to have Commissioner Banks tell you how it works. Then if you know all about it, why are you asking a question? You ask a question to hear a perspective. Okay, Karen.
I didn't call on you.
When people want to hear an answer, I'm going to give them an answer. The bottom line here is we have people who are just like everyone in this room, who are working people, who lost their housing. There is a phrase, there but for the grace of God go I. I am not going to see someone who needs a home and is on the street not have a shelter, not have a roof over their head. Our job is to get them back on their feet and get them out of shelter. We have done that so far with 140,000 people in the last 6 years. Out of shelter, into housing, back on their feet. And that's what we're going to do. And every community that has people in the shelter system should take some of the responsibility. This community board has people in the shelter system. This shelter is for working people from the Borough of Queens. Now, as to how we help people back on their feet, could you explain that, please, Steve?
And say you are, I'm sorry. Thank you. Let me also, my name is Stephen Banks. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Social Services, which includes both the Human Resources Administration and the Department of Homeless Services. And I'm here together with the NYPD. We work in partnership, and you had a number of different issues. We want to address them both from what services are we providing and what are the safety and security issues. So first of all, it's important to look at this shelter in the context of what the administration has actually done to address homelessness. This has been a problem that's built up over 40 years. It didn't start 6 years ago. We have the most comprehensive program to prevent homelessness. Evictions are up all over the country. They're down more than 30% in New York City because of our provision of lawyers and other programs to prevent evictions. As the mayor said, we've gotten 140,000 people connected with permanent housing. We could do more if the Hevesy-Kruger bill passes in the legislature to help more people avoid homelessness and move out. Through our Homestead program, we've brought 2,450 people off the street have remained off the street. And with the plan that the mayor announced just a month and a half ago, we're going to go even further and end long-term street homelessness based upon the record that we've shown. And we're transforming the shelter system. It used to be very haphazard. If you came from Queens, you could be sheltered in the Bronx. If you came from the Bronx, you'd be sheltered in Queens. And there were not the kind of services that we've been able to put in place to address the fact that we have people in our shelter system who are working reflective of the gaps between rents and income. Income has gone up rents have gone up nearly 19%, income has gone up less than 5%. That is what is producing much of the homelessness. It's economic. And so by transforming the shelter system, we're closing 360 locations. We're out of already 200, more than 200 locations, and we are siting 90 shelters. We've already cited more than 60 of them, including the one that you're talking about. And it is designed to help people who are employed get back on their feet, connect to employment, move out of shelter as quickly as possible. It is a rapid employment rehousing center. It is not a place where people are going to be warehoused. And that has been our track record in connecting people with permanent housing and with employment. We have a community advisory board that we have set up, and we welcome your participation in that. We will continue to work with the NYPD, and I'd like to turn it over to the chief to talk about what we're doing to maintain safety in the community.
Thank you. So thank you. And just let me pivot for a second and how instrumental from early on our NYPD Homeless Services Security Team was part of that conversation and was invited to the facility to give our opinion and state what concerns or issues we may have, whether that's exterior or interior security concerns. And our voices was heard. And the very foundation of where we started in neighborhood policing in 2015 plays a pivotal role here as well, because our neighborhood coordination officers are going to be visiting that location, are going to be working hand in hand as they do throughout this city to address any concerns that may arise, whether that's with business owners, local elected officials, school facilities, and this facility in particular, so that our police officers who patrol that area every single day get to know the residents of that facility, and by virtue of that, also get to know the residents in that general area, business owners, facilities, and schools, give them their information, cell phone numbers, email addresses, so that if anybody at any given time has any concern, and they're there to protect everyone, to ensure that everyone is safe. When things come up, they can mediate it, they can address it swiftly and justly.
back, right here with the blue sweater. With the blue sweater.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Mr. Mayor. I am a visually impaired person who has asked the city for many years to put in an audio pedestrian signal on the corner of Queens Boulevard and 71st Continental. There are many people in this community or who visit this community who would benefit from that. To cross Queens Boulevard when you don't see well or don't see at all or can't walk too fast is pretty much terrifying. The alternative is to go through the subway, which is also dangerous. So basically, I implore you to get this process moving forward. So far, Nicole Garcia of DOT in 2018 had her people talk to me. Well, we communicated like pen pals, but they never said anything worthwhile. And never. I don't need a pen pal. Then the chief of traffic for the NYPD put me in touch with a Sergeant Liff, who is a traffic...
I want to interrupt you for a good reason.
Yes.
We're ready to solve your problem.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm sorry you had to have a pen pal. So
you need to help because
no,
right
I'm
now-
ready to. I'm ready to. So
Okay,
Commissioner Trottenberg is going to solve this right now.
May I
Go ahead,
finish-
Commissioner.
May I finish what I was
Sure,
going to
sure.
say? Basically, the last thing I heard is DOT promised to have it installed by October 31st, 2019. And when that didn't happen, I did follow up and I was told there's an issue with the fire department. So there seems to be an interagency thing, and I would like you to cut through the bureaucracy.
We're going to cut through it right now.
Yay.
Okay, that's why town hall meetings exist. So, Commissioner, how quickly, and I'm sure we can address the fire department concerns simultaneously, how quickly can we get this in?
I have consulted with your pen pal, Nicole Garcia. We are all set to do it very quickly in coming weeks.
Okay,
So,
let's
there you go.
have a deadline. Commissioner, you're very good at getting
All
things
right.
done. What by when? Let's have a deadline.
We're going to say 1 month.
1 month. It will be in 1 month.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, good afternoon. My name is Vijay Ramjatan, and I am the CEC president of District 28. And from where I'm sitting on the table, what I'm hearing is, for every office that we have, the public is engaged to select who represents us. For the first time where I'm sitting, I'm seeing a group of 20 people who are being selected by a different entity to represent the district children and parents of District 28. Can we squash the whole plan, start all over, and get the working group by the parents, for the parents? Who wants to be part of that working group? Let's put our names on the list. Let's all vote as a community who we want to represent us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do it.
I appreciate all you do on the CEC, and I know it's a lot of work, and I know the pay is not great. But I would suggest a hybrid, which is a group of names that have been put together of people who have a lot to bring to the process. But there's obviously a lot to the previous question as well. There's a lot of other people who need to be at the table too. So I say working with the CEC, working with the elected officials, let's add whatever names we need to truly represent the different views in the community. As I said, this is a process that's going to go for the whole calendar year. There is no foregone conclusion. And I want to emphasize something the Assembly member said earlier, because he raised this to me, and I want to thank him. He said, look, one of the things that's not being said out loud is people are concerned about some measures that might be taken that they're not comfortable with, like school busing. I've said very publicly, I oppose school busing. Not regular school busing is fine, but I'm saying for this purpose, school busing to me is not the way to get it done. And in fact, in the districts that have found plans to diversify their schools, they were able to do it within the local community and in places where, for older kids, mass transit was part of it, but not asking kids to go huge distances and not with school busing. So it only works if it's done with the community. So I don't want to say that the people who have already been named don't have a place at the table. I want to add whatever additional people. And obviously, here's the most important point from your point of view. Nothing can move in the end. We don't want it to move unless the CEC is bought into it. It's not a legal requirement, but we think it's the right thing to do, because where it's worked every place else is where the CEC comes to the conclusion that the plan is balanced. will achieve the different goals that the community wants, and we all want. We want a fair and just society. We want to see kids grow up with kids of all different backgrounds. We want a great education for our kids. We don't want our kids traveling crazy distances, right? We're all human beings. So in the other districts, the CEC has got to that point where they said, we've got a plan we actually think balances all the factors. That's what we have to achieve here. Until we do that, nothing is going to change. Thank you.
Peter.
Thank you very much, Council Member. Oh, I get one of these. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for coming. I wanted to thank both you and Commissioner Trottenberg for the announcement that Queens Boulevard Phase 4 will finally be happening. I think that's a wonderful addition to the community. But to pick up on something that you said a moment ago, what can we do to develop that into an actual transportation network so that people have the option to come and shop locally at our stores? Because once they're in their cars, they can easily go to Roosevelt Field Mall as they can come to Austin Street. But you make a local transportation network that both addresses our climate goals, but also makes it safe for people who today would think that this might be a little bit of a crazy thing to do. How can we make it safe and create an integrated network so that that becomes a reality for regular people?
Give me an example of what you're talking about.
So, for instance, Yellowstone Boulevard runs through here. It connects north and south through the district. Extra wide parking lanes were painted. There's space on this road that could be used in a way that actually makes it safer for cyclists, and I don't even want to use that term, people on bikes. Everybody here have an opportunity to use that safely. Or Horace Harding Parkway, where it connects Queens Boulevard to the park, and we're actually going to see something like 3 residential towers being built along that corridor. And you can put in a 2-way bikeway, there's enough room, while calming traffic. One of the most dangerous intersections in the area is at Junction Boulevard and Horace Harding.
Okay, those are good examples. Polly, what do you say?
Thank you.
So thanks, Peter. I want to talk just a little bit about a couple things that the mayor has announced and work that we're going to be doing with the city council. The mayor announced last summer, as you know, unfortunately, we had a spate of cyclist fatalities. The mayor announced what we called the Green Wave, and we are pledging in the next 2 years to build out protected bike lanes at a pace of 30 miles per year, which is about 4 times what was sort of happening just a few years ago. We just announced our bike lane plans a few weeks ago in Brooklyn. We did this morning what we're going to be doing in Manhattan this year. We're going to be coming out to talk about what we're going to be doing in Queens very soon. We are now planning also for a bill that the council passed called the Master Plan, which is going to call upon DOT to do 50 miles of protected bike lanes a year, plus bus lanes, pedestrian space, in addition to all our ongoing Vision Zero work. So we're going to be doing, I think, a very tremendous and robust reworking of a lot of streets. You and I had just talked about, potentially doing some workshops and getting some input. And obviously Yellowstone is a place we've done a lot of work and certainly recognize there's more to do. But we will be, I think, very much on the streets here in the coming years doing a lot of the things you're talking about.
Bike lanes are not, we don't need bike lanes. Away from us.
Wait, just a moment. I want to say something about bike lanes. I am not against bike lanes. I am not against bike lanes. What I am not for are the bike lanes along Queens Boulevard that are taking away hundreds and hundreds of parking spots. What I would like to see, and I spoke to the mayor before and to Polly Trottenberg, I would like to see bike lanes on Queens Boulevard, but not in the service road. In the middle, with protection. Protection. Any place you go in New York City, and I've been to a lot of places in Manhattan and Queens, you see bike lanes, but you see parking also. And we cannot afford, because of our businesses, to lose all these parking spots. I can't go into a store without someone saying to me, what are you doing with the parking with the parking cars. They're not going to be able to park, and we're going to lose business. So I am not against bike lanes at all, at all. You can make any face you want, Peter. I am not against bike lanes. I am against them taking away all the parking spots that they have been taken away. I feel the bike lanes aren't safe because you have that little stick there. And many times I ride down Queens Boulevard, not many times, every single day, back and forth on Queens Boulevard. My office is on Queens Boulevard. And I see the buses go into the bike lanes. I see cars going into the bike lanes. Because if a car stops, if a truck stops on Queens Boulevard to make a delivery, everything stops. And I've always said this, that Queens Boulevard, they treat like a highway. It's not a highway. And I have worked very hard on Queens Boulevard for years to make it safe, and I did. And I want to continue to do that. So I would like to have bike lanes on Queens Boulevard, but not take away the parking spots. And we discussed this before, that we can work it out.
Let me speak to this because I think it's really important. And again, I said that this is a council member who I listen to and my whole team listens to. So the simplest summary in the world, it used to be called the Boulevard of Death. And no one wants to go back to those days. We lost kids, we lost senior citizens. Since we have been changing Queens Boulevard, it's been a transformation in terms of safety. We have to finish the job one way or another. That is the bottom line. We have to finish the job. Now, the council member has asked, as of earlier this evening, formally appealed to me to consider a different alternative for that same stretch, because we are going to address that stretch. She's asked us to consider another alternative on that stretch. Our Transportation Commissioner is right here. Commissioner, I'm asking you to formally review this proposal. DOT has a proposal. I want this to be given absolute total consideration. I want to see both proposals. I will make the ultimate decision. But you've now put it on the table. I take it seriously. We do, of course, we want to protect small business. Of course, we want to protect parking. We want to protect human life, first and foremost. Number one thing is to protect life. But if we can strike a better balance, we will. So both proposals be on the table, and I will decide, and we will do this quickly. Thank you.
Yes, the woman. Yes.
You get a microphone.
Hi, thank you for coming. I just want to add on to the shelter thing in a different aspect of it. I have a shelter in my community. It's in College Point. I am on the Community Advisory Board, and we are also a rapid rehousing facility. I went to our first meeting with members of J.H.S, the shelter employees, and our community members. 60% of the people work, 40% are unemployed or on SSI. The local businesses in the neighborhood, and I have it all right here, are being, I don't even know how to put it politely, but these women are going into their businesses. One was filmed urinating in front of their elevators. They are going into the insurance company, which is Allstate. They have a courtesy table for their clients. They took their lollipops, their plates, their coffee, their tea, like all sorts of stuff like that's going on. And 911 is called. NYPD does show up. I don't know the results after NYPD shows up, but this is going on like a lot. And they're in our neighborhood park, smoking marijuana, drinking all day long. And parents are nervous. The local businesses are nervous. And it is a rapid rehousing facility, but yet only 60% of the people are working, and there seem to be many, many women within a substance abuse problem.
Okay, let me have them speak to it in a second, but let me start. I appreciate what you're raising, because first of all, thank you for getting involved to try and address the community issues. Second of all, thank you for coming here and saying, here are specific problems that need to be addressed. I take that very seriously. Several of the problems you just raised are law enforcement problems purely. If someone's smoking marijuana, that's illegal. That's something we can take law enforcement action on. On top of that, the reason we have neighborhood coordinating officers is to get close to the community, to work to resolve issues like this. There are many ways to resolve it. NYPD is very resourceful about how to address an issue like this. So I'll let the chief and the commissioner speak to it, but what I'd like is if you would make sure to connect with them so they can follow up and have people follow up with you directly. I want to see, to both of you, these are resolvable quality of life issues. Here's someone raising valid concerns who's putting her time and energy into addressing them. I want to see the situation improve so that you will be able to tell me you saw an improvement and you saw that your complaint led to something, and you two have to make it happen.
Again, I also appreciate your comment. I appreciate that you're participating in the Community Advisory Board. It's how we get input. Just for the sake of the group, though, I want to distinguish that particular shelter from the one that is in Community Board 5 here in Queens. That is a shelter for women, not an employment shelter for women. There are a number of women that are employed because, unfortunately, as I've said, many of our clients are there or in shelter because of economics. But that was set up as a general population of women who have a range of needs, as distinct from the shelter that we have recently opened in Cooper Avenue outside of the council member's district that we've talked about before, which is specifically for employed people. We will very much focus on what you are raising with us. We have programming to make sure that people have things to do in the shelter as opposed to in the neighborhood. That was something the mayor was very big on. It was one of the first things we did when we started reforming the shelter system, eliminate the old rule that you had to be out of shelter during the day and to provide on-site programming. I want to look into the kinds of things that you're raising to see whether or not the programming is meeting our standards, and we're very committed to do that. I hear what you're saying, and from what you're saying, I might agree with you, but I think that, as the mayor said, these are solvable problems, and I'm going to turn it over to the chief to have him explain what they're going to do, and we'll work together as the mayor directed us to.
Yeah, I just want to echo what you've heard already, and that's the beauty about coming to meetings across the city, whether it's a mayor's town hall, a local community council meeting, local public safety meeting, and our build-a-block meetings that our neighborhood coordination officers hold in that community on a quarterly basis 4 times a year. So hear exactly those concerns. I believe that area you speak of is the 109th Precinct in College Point. So please, I will be here. I have the borough commander, Chief Frierson, here. See us afterwards. And I assure you,
Look, you got let me jump in, Chief. You've got the chief of patrol. No, I'm not missing your point, but listen, chain of command matters. You got the chief of patrol. Every patrol officer in New York City reports to this guy right here. And you got the borough commander. You're in very good hands. So they want to see you after. They're going to respond to you. I think you're raising very important concerns. Chief, I want to hear back from you about how long you think it will take to put a plan in place to change the quality of life conditions. People have to see it change.
you will undoubtedly see a change very, very, did I say very? Very quickly. All right? See me afterwards, please. Thank you.
We'll talk to her. Thanks. We'll talk to her.
Me? No, me, sorry, honey. I hate to bring up the subject of the jails again.
Please.
Yeah, please. Okay. Then I will do that. If anybody had come to us, I've lived here 50 years, my house is 110 years old, and I've known Karen for 40 years. We do have a jail. We did have a jail, and we've met with you once before when you told us you'll get used to it. We're not getting used to it. We have members of the community board here, and I know that things have been done. The bottom line is we don't trust anybody. And the word community has not passed through the lips of anyone on your commission. The commissioners, they have never, ever taken our interests to heart from the day they met us when 2 years ago we found out about it at a because Karen managed to have a group together, whereupon I shouldn't mention names, right? No, I shouldn't mention names.
You're a
right.
diplomat.
Are you listening? Said, we have worked very hard with the community. I said, who are you? We're the community. I've never seen you in my life. We see that same PowerPoint every time. You have not worked with the community. You have. I am embarrassed by what has gone on. We went to a meeting which must have cost $50,000 in PR and paper, where I went to college and I have a master's degree. They give me a coloring book to say, do you like 1, 2, 3, 4? How would you like the outside on where people come in to look? I don't know what the building is going to look like. I'm going to choose to have benches, which would be very nice for the homeless, or big rocky things where the kids could skateboard. Please. We were only, Sylvia's on the, everybody knows Sylvia. She's on the community board. It is a disgrace, and I am embarrassed, and I am mad. I have lived here. We are willing to work. And had you come to us before you decide we're going to use to talk to the community, we would have done something. Yes, we had a jail, and we would have worked with you before. But you are dissing us to speak the way my grandchildren speak. I'm 85 years old, and I haven't got that much time here.
Okay. I think you may have a lot of time. You got a lot of spirit. Look, we're going to disagree, but I just disagree with you when you say you didn't like the process. Okay, you don't trust anyone. That doesn't surprise me. Excuse me, I'm just answering you. You spoke, I'm answering. There was a jail there. We made a decision. It was guys, I understand the frustrations, and there's no one in New York City that says, oh, please put a jail in my community. I get that. But there was a process that involved the whole city council had to vote. We had to make a decision. We decided, the democratically elected leaders of the city, mayor and city council, that staying on Rikers was bad for the future of the city. So then we said, okay, we're going to go to borough-based jails. 2 were already active jails, Manhattan and Brooklyn. We said, great, we're going to go to those sites. Those sites are in residential communities. Those sites are in areas that you could only call, at this moment in history, places that are doing pretty well economically. Those are places where there's not been a safety problem for decades and decades. Here's a site in Queens where there was a jail. We're going to build on that site because that's the obvious place to put a jail where there was a jail. People wanted it lower. We made it lower. People wanted parking added. We added parking. We're going to try and address those concerns. The only other site, the one in the Bronx, we put on city-owned land because we needed a city-owned site. So I get that people don't like it, but we listened and acted in the way we could within the decision we had made. It's as simple as that. And it's going forward. I'm sorry, the decision belongs to your democratically elected representatives. That's how it works. No, it doesn't.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. Okay. We're meeting tomorrow morning, and we'll continue the conversation. Okay, yes, sir. Yes. I'm over here.
Go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much. So my concern is a very small one in a 10-block radius, right by the Forest Hills High School, 110th Street. There is a 3-block patch on 110th Street where there is absolutely no stop sign. And on a typical day, the cars run anywhere from 40 to 60 miles an hour because those are the cars that come off Grand Central Parkway.
Where exactly would you like them?
So I want a stop sign on 66th Avenue and 110th Street. In that 10-block radius, almost every household has at least 3 little kids, and I have 3 small kids.
I hear you. What have we evaluated this site?
We're just checking. I don't think we've studied it, but we'll obviously.
But how quick does an evaluation take?
If you just follow.
Hold on. How quick is an evaluation?
Well, there's certain times a year that it makes more sense to do it than others. You want to do it at a time when
do
you're
the
gonna
rush job. Well, how fast does it take to do an evaluation?
Well, you can do it. You can do it very quickly, but you sometimes want to pick the right time of year
So
to do it.
just
we'll come.
So just so that you know,
Yeah.
I had called 112th precinct. Our great officers in that precinct are fully aware of this site and the speeding problem there. And also there have been multiple crashes in last few years in that particular site. And Karen, I've emailed your office at least twice with a request for a stop sign on 110th Street and 66th Avenue.
Okay, we're going to do an initial evaluation right away.
Thank you, sir. My youngest kid is 7-year-old.
I got you, brother. I got you.
Thank you.
Will you please follow up with the commissioner team? We will do an evaluation immediately. I'm someone who believes in more stop signs. So let's see what we get from this evaluation. If it checks out, we'll get a stop sign in. Thank you. I got you, brother. Thank you.
All right, the gentleman with the red shirt.
How you doing, Mayor? I got a very pressing question that has not been spoke about tonight. It is about the safety of children in the school system. It's paramount. We're all parents in here. And I'm asking you, what will it take for you to stop supporting a racist chancellor? Chancellor Carranza is a top-shelf racist. He's held out Asians just last week with your security detail, only allowing in black and white people into that meeting until somebody brought it to the attention of the stage, and then the Asians were let into the building. I'm not Asian. My daughter is Hispanic, Colombian to be more specific. But I will stand here for Asian children, for all children. And your chancellor is a racist person. He's spoken numerous insults about the Asians before he even arrived to New York City. I can't believe that you still have his back. It is absolutely disgusting. He got sent to Chinatown. He had Spanish translators available for the Hispanics. Not one Asian translator. One other thing that ties very closely with the racist Richard Carranza, and that is, let's speak about Jackie Cody, a black woman who called Asian children yellow children. Yellow people and yellow children. Let me ask you this one question, Mayor. You're married to a black woman. Do you think that if a white woman or an Asian person were to use the N-word anywhere in this whole city, do you think that you, together with racist Carranza, would not have had her dismissed that very evening? Let me just tell you this. I'm 56 years old, lived in this city my whole life, and you are the worst mayor that New York City has ever seen.
Thank you. So nice of you. I'm sure you're very proud of yourself. And you know what? There are elections. You know what? There are elections in this city. Maybe you're not sure about that. So we've had we have had two elections. Have a nice day.
And you're very rude.
Yes. So look, my friends, in a democratic society, we have elections and we get things done on behalf of the people. What this gentleman is saying is an absolute misrepresentation. Let me speak to this. Richard Carranza is someone who has spent his whole life in education serving all children. He was the superintendent in San Francisco, California, which has one of the biggest Asian communities in the entire United States of America. He worked closely with the community there. He works with all communities here. There are some people who disagree with his policies. There are some people who have absolutely misrepresented his policies. He and I want to take full responsibility, he and I believed there was something wrong with the specialized high schools. We put forward a plan. We did that trying to address every community in the city. It did not move forward because a lot of people felt it wasn't going to work, and they had concerns, particularly in the legislature. And people in Asian communities, among other communities, said, we want this plan reconsidered. And the plan is being reconsidered. So I just don't accept this notion that because someone like Chancellor Carranza, who is trying to serve every child, does something that someone disagrees with, then they call him a racist. That's not fair. There is no evidence of that whatsoever. He has spent his whole life educating all children of all backgrounds, and he will continue to as our chancellor.
I just ask everybody, please do not be rude. Ask a question, but do not be rude. Edwin?
Hi, Karen. Hi, Mayor. Thank you again for coming. I'm with the, my name is Edwin Wong. I'm with the Forest Hills Asian Association. I do echo some of the comments that gentleman just mentioned, because many in the Asian community and Asian American community do not feel that the current chancellor has their back. They feel that he is racist for certain reasons. So I do want to understand a little bit more of why do you continue to support him, and how do you recommend that he improve the relationship, if he wants to, with the Asian American community? Right now it's very toxic, and I just,
No, I appreciate the question. I'm going to say, if you feel it, I mean, obviously you're a community leader. If you feel it, I can't tell you don't feel something. I can tell you that, I mean, I looked very carefully at him in selecting him and everything he had done in his life and everything he's done since. And I am extremely sensitive if I think someone is unfair to any community. I don't agree. I think there was a policy disagreement on a very major controversial issue, the specialized high schools, that I didn't handle it well and he didn't handle it well, because we were trying to address a level of disparity that was unbelievable. This is not your fault. It's not the Asian community's fault. It's not struggling immigrants who are trying to get their kids a better future. They didn't create the admission system. All we were trying to say is the sum total of that admissions, if the shoe was on the other foot, I know you would feel this. If you looked at Stuyvesant High School and it was 2% Asian, and you thought there was a structural reason why, you would protest rightfully. So we have the majority of our city is black and Latino, the majority of our kids in schools by far are black and Latino, and they basically can't have much presence at all in a place like Stuyvesant. So look, there's more to it than that. But look, you can debate the why. It's a perfectly valid discussion. But I'm saying, I'm empathizing. I'm saying we presented what we thought was a better solution. We heard a lot of people say, we think this is unfair to our community. That was a valid concern. So now you say, where do we go from here? And this is the most important part. Right. I would ask that if you see something about the chancellor or me you would disagree with, do not assume it is something as horrible, absolutely horrible, as racism. It might be a difference in terms of policy. It might be we didn't understand something we should have understood. It might be we miscommunicated something. But if you're going to call someone a racist, you better be damn sure, not you personally, anyone, okay? I think he feels there are specific organized groups, not you, not all people, some very specific politicized organized groups that are attacking him because he's trying to bring change. That's what he feels. It is not broad brush. But you're making the most important point, and I appreciate it. Where do we go from here? I say this, I'm ready to sit down. I had a very productive meeting with the chancellor, with some Asian community members, community leaders, I should say, last year, where people were very open about why they felt hurt, why they felt we had not communicated well, why they felt that we had misunderstood the immigrant experience, why we misunderstood the aspirations of Asian parents. I took all that in. I'm a public school parent too. And I couldn't sit there and say to people, oh no, you shouldn't feel that. So it was really important to hear that. And we have not advanced the plan, again, because we realize we have to approach it a different way. Because it clearly, we tried to do something we thought was good and fair, and a lot of people thought it was unfair to them, and that was not the intention. So my question, I actually will come back to you and say, I know the chancellor wants to have an entirely different dialogue. I know, if you know him and his personal background, he has a lot in common with the very people who have the concerns right now, humanly. He wants to have a dialogue. I want to have a dialogue. I welcome it to figure out how we go forward. I believe there's something better than what we have now. That's the one thing I'll say to you. I believe that I'm just going to stay on the specialized schools. If in the future New York City, specialized schools do not include our black and Latino children, who will be our majority for generations to come, something's wrong. But I don't want to hurt you or your family. How do we fix it together? How do we fix it together? So I would welcome that dialogue, and I welcome you advising us on people that you want to bring to the table to have that dialogue with us. But I'm saying, I think it begins with literally, you're going to be one of the people, if you're willing, I asked to do this. Put together the groups of people that we should sit down with. I think it always begins with a dialogue. And I'm saying in front of you, I'm sorry for any misstep we made. It was not our intention. The best way forward is to have a dialogue and figure out where can we find some common ground. Thank you.
Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
How you doing?
Good to see you. I'm doing good.
Good, man.
How you doing?
It's just another night, brother.
Gotcha. So on behalf of Community Board 6, I just want to say, we have waited so long for that library. And the last time you were here in Rego Park at the Lost Battalion New Hall, you told my great council member and the funding was coming down, and it happened. And we're forever grateful for that. It's one of the top 10 libraries in New York City being used. But now, today I wrote a letter, and my chair, Alexa Weitzman, and myself wrote this letter. As you know, we have to do a letter of comment with regard to our capital and expense budget. The letter today said, "Dear Mr. Mayor, please."
Was it that nice?
It was, of course, Mr. Mayor, it was very nice. So is my goatee. So, you got that, right? So, on behalf of the 160,000 people that live in Community Board 6, we want to say thank you so much on a positive note. And I have no question, but thank you, really.
You're
we
welcome.
Need that.
Appreciate it, brother.
My team, I need someone.
The gentleman over here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for coming. I've come by the councilwoman's office about my question on this one. In regards to the buildings, greening of new buildings, my concern is by looking at some of the text of the legislation, it seems like a large impact and cost unknown, and it's coming down the pipeline very fast. So is there going to be any considerations for, I live in a co-op building on Queens Boulevard, and is there going to be considerations if the cost that, from these evaluations that are going to be happening, are beyond the short-term capacity of the owners of buildings as a partial owner of a co-op? Is there going to be any sort of mitigating factors that are going to be applied? I understand we have the goal to reach, but sometimes the cost to reach there, especially with these pre-war buildings, are a lot.
Very fair question. You're talking about the building retrofit law, right?
Correct.
Okay. So I'll very quick answer. The law is the strongest law basically in the world for any major city, because I'm going to appeal to everyone in this room. If we don't deal with global warming really quick, we are all in danger, but especially if you have children or grandchildren, they're going to pay the price a lot more than a lot of the rest of us. So we have to do something. Turns out in New York City, big buildings cause a disproportionate share of the emissions, more than cars. It's like this is really the core of where our emissions come from. But your question is extremely fair. We've got to make sure it's workable. The first deadline is 2025. The more stringent deadlines are 2030. There is time. Remember that once the retrofits are made, any building owner will get back steady savings thereafter because of the retrofit. So it is, at least on the back end, there's a good equation. But it's a very fair question. If there are buildings, we want to, as part of the process, figure out if there's some buildings that are not going to be able to do it, what we can do to help. I know a lot of the biggest buildings, which are the #1 challenge, I'm not worried about them financially. I'm not worried about the big buildings in Manhattan. But if you're talking about a building that still might qualify but is on the smaller range, we have to work with you to see what makes it more doable. If you would be kind enough, I'll have one of our colleagues follow up with you. And who's going to, someone from CAU? You got it. Okay, so Melanie's going to, you can also, you may know more about the specific support we can provide. Our buildings commissioner, Melanie LaRocca, will you follow up? Very popular. She is doing a lot to fix the buildings department, the #1 agency that needs fixing, many people would say, and she is doing a lot to reform it. I appreciate it. Melanie, will you follow up with this gentleman? let me know, using his case as an example, what kind of support we're looking at, and if you have anything you want to add now.
Yeah, I would just add, as the mayor said, we are very early. We've started the advisory board, and certainly one of the things that we'll be looking at in the coming years as we get closer to that 2025 deadline is the economic impact to all types of property owners, whether you're a co-op condo, big or small, as long as you're one of the buildings that's covered, and that will have to make changes, both capital and just how you run the building. We're looking at the impacts and how we can help resolve that. So I'll take your information and we'll keep talking.
Wait, let's announce. Okay, everybody. Wait. Let's do the real news. It's been about 2 hours. We've got 5 more questions at this point. And again, anyone who wants to stay after and see any of the commissioners, they will still be here.
I'm the president of the Forest Hills Chamber of Commerce, of which we have well over 150 businesses. And I really want to thank Councilmember Koslowitz for her support and all the things that she said, and the fact that you have her ear on bike lanes, because it is so imperative that we keep our parking spaces. So I can't thank the council member enough. The bike lanes that are existing now are not what are considered protected bike lanes. They're protected bike lanes, from what I understand, are like sidewalks. They use planters, curbs, parked cars, or posts to separate the bike and the auto traffic on busy streets. Protected bike lanes are essential to building a full network of bike-friendly routes. I have a photo of one. So one question, I know I have to be limited to one question, but are they going to make these bike-friendly and protect our parking spots? We've had many meetings. The DOT has come to our meetings. It's fallen on deaf ears. The responses we've got have been disrespectful from DOT. 300 parking spaces lost to our community would be just a disaster. My colleague Barry Rothenberg brought up Amazon. We don't have a level playing field, so we're dealing with so many issues. So I implore you to please keep our parking spaces. We all want safety, we all want the green environment, but we have to have parking spaces, and it's not just to run into the store, it's to go to doctors, it's to drop your kids off to schools, it's for very multiple use things. So I really, again, I can't thank our council member enough, and I really hope that you'll hear our cry and keep our parking spaces. And I would like to hear the mayor's response on how to do that.
Well, I'll start, and then if the commissioner wants to add. Look, anyone who feels that their voice hasn't been heard, there's something, bluntly, I'm not happy about, right? I get when people are going to disagree, but I want people to feel that what they said got heard. We're still going to make decisions in the end that we think are what's right for the overall needs of New York City. It starts with protecting people's lives. So the council member did something important. She said don't do something at Queens Boulevard, because she has been one of the great leaders for decades in trying to make that boulevard safe. She said, I have a different alternative I want you to consider. She wants me to consider a different alternative. I'll consider it. Again, I'll make the final decision. But I want you, with our commissioner, with the council member, to talk through any and all options, any and all thoughts. One thing, look, DOT, I have seen them do this. I want to give the commissioner credit. Sometimes people have said, could you do it this way instead? And they've said yes. Sometimes people have said, okay, you did something. Guess what? It had a consequence you didn't expect. And they went back and they changed it. So DOT, if you'll give them options, if you'll give them feedback, and even when the thing happens, if you help us understand what's happening, we're going to try every way we can to adjust. What we won't do, I just want to be very straightforward with you, we will not leave the status quo in Queens Boulevard in place, because it's too dangerous. But we're going to work together to find the best solution.
Mr. Mayor and council member, it's an honor to be here, and thank you for the opportunity. So my parents fled Tibet in 1960s for freedom and safety. And as a refugee and a Queens resident, I'm here to raise concern about the ongoing Tibet exhibit at the Queens Public Library in Amherst. The exhibit is full of lies and misinformation, and it's a propaganda that is sponsored by the Chinese consulate in New York City. And I'm here to raise concern to how can we make sure that institutions like libraries, public libraries, can be used by the foreign government to spread lies and misinformation. Thank you.
I'm glad you raised it. Which branch? Elmhurst?
Amherst.
You've got my full attention. I did not hear that one before. I am exceedingly critical of the Chinese government and the way they have oppressed people and taken away their human rights. And no one has suffered more than the Tibetan people. So I did not have any reason to believe that any of our library systems would present the Chinese government point of view. I would have assumed the other way around, honestly, and I'd be getting the complaint from the Chinese government. So I will talk to our Deputy Mayor, Phil Thompson, who works with the library systems, and we will immediately see what we can do to address this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much.
Talking to her.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Karen Koslowitz was my friend and neighbor for many, many years, and I applaud you for your service, for so many things that you've done for the seniors, my mom, for all the centers, and the crossing on Queens Boulevard by the Normandy. That is a blessing. I appreciate that. And of course, we know Toby Savitsky
right.
and Melinda Katz.
You got a fan club.
But to say, I am a proud Jew, but I'm sure you and everyone here is aware that in a short time, there have been a number of anti-Semitic incidents in Borough Park, Flatbush, and Crown Heights. Now, you said before that we're the largest city with a Jewish population outside of the state of Israel. What is being done about the proliferation of anti-Semitism in New York City? I welcome your answer. Thank you.
I hear your question loud and clear. I'm going to answer it. I'm just going to challenge one fact. And I had this conversation with the mayor of Jerusalem, and I had this conversation with the mayor of Tel Aviv. In the city limits of our city versus the city limits of Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, there are more Jewish people in New York City. That is a true statement. So this is the second homeland. So look, so I represented the Borough Park community in the city council, and I have a very, very close relationship with that community. So I know people who are Holocaust survivors who had to watch the results of these hate crimes. Imagine if you're a Holocaust survivor and you see someone has put a swastika somewhere in your community. It's devastating, and it's dangerous. We saw an uptick recently. We have not seen something like this in many, many years. And I worry about it because we're seeing it all over the world. And we know a lot more hate has been unleashed in the United States towards many people. So we take it very seriously. Most of these incidents, the overwhelming majority, have been symbolic, not physical assaults. But I don't forgive that, and I don't belittle that, because if you look at the history, the origins of the Holocaust started with things that seemed very minor and blossomed into things that got very dangerous. It started with people who actually were running for office saying things that were faintly anti-Semitic, that turned into very anti-Semitic, that turned into violently anti-Semitic, that turned into a dictatorship that killed 6 million people. So I take these warning signs very seriously. Our response has been overwhelming force to put the NYPD out in the 3 communities, overwhelmingly. And I've talked to many, many of the community leaders who I know well, who said they have seen an amazing response. And you have noticed that, thank God, the incidents are declining now because of that presence. But we have other things we have to do to get at this for the long haul. In our schools, we're changing the curriculum, particularly in communities that have big Jewish communities, so that people get educated about the community and the history. We are literally sending Holocaust survivors into public schools to help our young people understand what the human consequence of anti-Semitism has been. And I really believe this. When our young people, a lot of them had no clue. Who could blame them? It's decades and decades later. But when they hear what this really is and how dangerous it is, it opens people's minds very quickly and opens their hearts. And we're sending out community safety coalitions, which means people from the Jewish community, black community, Latino community, all together patrolling the streets, showing unity, addressing young people. We're going to do all these things until this crisis is over. And this is the city on earth, outside of Israel, where the Jewish people should always feel secure. And I guarantee that. We will make sure that is the case in New York City. How many?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for investing your time in our community and for your work in helping to remove barriers to early education for families that couldn't otherwise afford it. Thank you, everyone, for being here. My name is Tene Bazin. I, too, am a parent to biracial children, and I live in this community. My children have been repeatedly adultified in this district, harassed and disciplined over normal childhood behavior. We live in New York City, one of the most segregated cities in the nation. I am supportive of a process that leads to real integration, and there are many of us here tonight that support this process. Absolutely. We are excited about the opportunity to meaningfully integrate our public schools. Integration, the only known tool that has worked to shift the arc of people's lives for the better. We all benefit from learning together, productively. Our fates are intertwined. Separate is never equal. Can you commit to allow for a process for real integration to move forward, however imperfect the process it may or may not be, and not allow the obstructionist groups to derail it?
I really appreciate the question, and it's such a complex topic. I'm going to try my best in only a few minutes to answer it. First of all, thank you for your very sincere point. On the question of anything that you feel has happened with your kids, I just want to ask that if you want to talk about the specific situation with our DOE folks, our Chief Operating Officer, Ursulina Ramirez, is here, and if you'll see her afterwards, I'd appreciate that. Want to see if we can address that. On the question of the process, okay, something I've talked about a little, I haven't talked about it a lot, but I think it's important to raise here. I believe that diverse classrooms benefit everyone. I don't think it's the only part of the discussion. I want to be very honest about this. But I believe they benefit everyone. Young people learn together, get to know each other. It goes back to the question a moment ago about anti-Semitism and all the other challenges. The more people get to know each other and their cultures, the more we overcome a lot of the divisions that still face us. I think that is a different question than can a child learn wherever they are in New York City. There are some places in New York City where it is much easier because of geography and where communities are, to move certain types of approaches to integration than other places. If a child happens to be in a community that tends to be one type of background, that doesn't mean that child cannot learn and we cannot have a first-class school for that child. I want to be careful because I think there's a problem there. Because I know, and I think an honest conversation acknowledges, decades and decades of economic discrimination, the economics, the housing, all the things that went in discrimination. Even if we work in every creative way, it will take us a long time to unwind that. For all those kids in the meantime, they deserve a great education right now. And I believe that kids of color can learn and do amazing things among other kids of color. I don't think it's one way or another. I believe, right, I thank you. I believe the ideal is to maximize diversity because it's not just about everyone getting the best education, it's also about what it helps us do as a society. But when I was growing up, I saw something that really had an imprint on me, and I felt it was the wrong way to do things, and it left a real impact. I was born here in Manhattan, no, we're not in Manhattan now, but I was here in New York City, in Manhattan, and my parents were born in New York City, my family's from New York City, but when I was a kid, my parents, because of work, moved to Massachusetts. I grew up watching the attempt at desegregation in Boston in the 1970s. which was tragically a horrible example, of course. And so my point is, and this is very much why I answered what I answered tonight, in District 1, in District 3, in District 15, to begin, there were wide-ranging community discussions. Not everyone agreed, but there were very honest conversations about how to do things. One of the things that happened in those conversations was people started saying, you know what, we could live with this more if we saw these other changes. Or I would be interested in going to that school where the kids may not look like my kids if they had certain types of programs. A real honest conversation came out about what would make it work, because we believed, and I believe this both from that experience a long time ago, but also watching what's worked here, you want community buy-in. You want people to believe. Right, no, I know, and I've heard you, so I'm just going to finish up, and I appreciate your earnestness, but I don't want it to just be a personal dialogue. So to the folks who know already they want to see it happen, we're having a process this year. Please engage it. And please offer your ideas, and please listen to those who have hesitations, and let's find a way to address those hesitations. To the folks, listen, I'm not going to, for me to commit to ignore a community process that I'm saying is necessary to a positive outcome is a contradiction. I want to see the maximum diversification of New York City schools. We have done a number of steps to do that already. We have more coming. We have tried some things that did not work in the first iteration, like with the specialized high schools. We're going to do more work with people to see a better way forward. There's lots of pieces to the equation. But for a district process, I want a process that in the end I can turn to the CEC, and you are the president, I can turn to the CEC and say, do you buy into this? Maybe not everyone's going to agree with every detail, but can you live with this? Do you think it'll work? I want that. That's what, because I've seen it work in 3 districts already, and I want that to be the model. So that's what I commit to. This year, let's have that process. Let's see if we can get everyone to a point where we have a plan we can move forward with. Thank you. I said it already.
This is going to be the last question, and if anybody did not have their questions answered, these wonderful people will be here and you can ask them the questions. The lady standing in the back.
Hi, I'm Shanita Bowen, representing Family Child Care Providers from ECE on the Move. Family child care providers are happy to participate in the city's initiatives to continue offering quality care in our homes. What happened? When is the city planning to raise the needle on compensation for this family child care workforce? We cannot afford to continue operating without current pay. Even under the new DOE programming, we cannot focus on all of the new programming until something is done about the poor compensation of family child care earning less than $4 per hour per child. We ask that you pay attention to the sector of family child care who feel like slaves. Being herded into DOE's plans is not the answer for all of us. We are important and we deserve to be better compensated. We have our legislative and budgetary asks with me today. We ask that family child care asks be heard one by one, because despite the new initiatives, our industry is dying.
So you'll do the follow-up. Listen, I thank you for raising it. Obviously, for the last 6 years, we have tried to focus on young children, all different ways. Pre-K for all, 3K for all. We have a new initiative that we've just announced to do family home visits to help new families, to help them on their way. What you do and what your colleagues do is an important part of the equation. And so this is our Chief Operating Officer for the DOE, Ursulina Ramirez. She is one of the people who runs the place. I'm going to ask her to follow up with you directly and see how we can start to address these issues, because obviously we need every piece of the equation to work to help our young children. So Ursulina will follow up with you. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you being here.